Have you had any communication or reached out to anyone with the Federal Bureau of Investigation or anyone who might be involved with actually investigating Antifa? Has there been any reach out to them?
Yes, I would say in advance of this and even afterwards, I know the chief and his team have been reaching out to a variety of resources.
Everyone we know at the FBI, none of them have spoken with you. And no one from the police said that they gave you an official statement. So I'm wondering, you give a statement for the police, you haven't spoken with anyone over there who would actually be involved with the investigation. Chris, what's the truth here, man? Fallout. We did this Antifa video last Thursday. People watched it.
Epic.
Let me ask you this question of the day beforehand, okay? Many of you are new conservatives. I want to know, were you always aware of the implicit media bias and how severe it was? Or do you think it's only gotten worse recently? I've heard this. Or do you think it's always been this bad and it's just harder to hide with new media? Look at a comment below. Because we've been running into this now. The video that we released where we went undercover to Antifa, by the way, Not Gay Jared shirt is on sale in honor of him. Brass balls, we appreciate it. Over 12 million plays across YouTube and Facebook. Multiple attempts, by the way, to remove the video. With no responses directly from YouTube, so keep this in mind. Both people who committed criminal acts admitting to it on camera, and then public interviewees like Lex Scott, who said she was the one who said that Ben Shapiro, most dangerous man in the world, claimed it's a violation of her privacy to show her interview, to show her very public speech. Yes! So this is what's been going on. There have been many, many attempts behind the scenes to get this removed. Thank God for a lawyer, Bill Richmond. Fox 13 local in Utah ran this story, okay? Should be noted, Fox 13 is the place that passed on the story while we were showing them the footage next to the police. So they have a little bit of an axe to grind. And they ran this story with the University of Utah spokesperson, Chris Nelson, who basically said that according to the police who reviewed our footage, there was no credible threat. By the way, later on in that very same article, they talk about how court documents should note that one of the girls in the video was arrested.
It's a footnote at the end.
It's just headline bias at that point. It could have just read, Louderworth Crowder infiltrate Antifa, arrests made, but it didn't. So first off, we actually were trying to get a hold of Chris Nelson. We left a voicemail for him looking for answers. We'll see if he calls us back.
You've reached Chris Nelson. Please leave a message, and I'll return your call.
At the tone, please record your message. When you've finished recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options.
Hi, this message is for Mr. Chris Nelson. This is Roman Munson calling from the Dallas Herald online. I'm calling because I'd like to clarify some information surrounding a recent video that went, I guess, viral online regarding Antifa on your campus and any subsequent arrests thereof or what false information is out there. Of course, as you know, with anyone with a blog and YouTube can release anything nowadays. So it would be a tremendous help if you could call me back it'll only take a few moments of your time. That's Roman Munson at the Dallas Herald. I look forward to speaking with you. Take care. We'll see if he calls back later in this segment. It's almost like with the magic of editing, we've already called him. So a couple of things. People need to understand, why does this matter? We've decided, this happened in Lansing, Michigan. You've heard me talk about this, where the unions committed more crimes than you could watch in a lifetime. And of course, there was media silence. There were a couple of lies from local media that then get picked up by national media. Local media, it's the farm team, but a lot of national media, they don't send out the reporters. They don't have the resources, so they rely on their local affiliates to give them the stories on the ground. And they often rely on local community resources, specifically colleges, their spokespeople. So it's this never-ending vicious cycle of lies that people need to understand.
Terrible journalism.
So there can be a lie in the local Fox 13, and then all of a sudden that can be. So we've decided that anytime there's a lie on this story, we're going to drop the Moab. We're not going to let it go. So you can try it if you want, but this is an argument from truth. So what happened specifically before we get to the phone call with Mr. Chris Nelson? There were several Antifa members, who were on our video. One actually went through with an attack. Her alias was Honeybee, So you can see her being arrested, and she changed her cover photo to Honeybee, What did we do with this video? A lot of people didn't realize this wasn't clear. We coordinated tactics in person. We got footage of Honeybee's weapons before anything happened, and handed it over immediately to the police. And you can see in the footage her handing a knife to Jared, and in the footage, a pink taser on this person, Honeybee, who was arrested. We handed it over to the police. You should tell them this, Not Gay Jared.
I handed it over to the police, who thought it was such a critical threat and valid threat that they directly took me to special agents they had on the ground, special agents from the FBI.
Exactly. So let's be clear.
Wow.
By the way, people from the FBI who won't necessarily be available for comment. Just so you know. So there's a lot of stuff that you cannot know behind the scenes, but we'll give you as much information as we can. So she's arrested. Why? Because Honeybee used a taser on another person at the rally. She used that pink taser. Okay, she's now facing felony charges for aggravated assault. So how did the media and University of Utah try? Well, they tried to downplay it. Chris Nelson, the U of U spokesperson, he tried to do damage control with the local news. So he tried to say, well, actually, in reviewing, the police reviewed the footage and there was no credible threat. And actually, even Ben Shapiro thought this was true, that the police said this. If you read the story, there's no author, no byline, and there's no source from anyone at the police, let alone any federal bureau, who would, of course, be involved in investigating a group that has been classified officially as a domestic terrorist organization. Yep. So if you read the article, it doesn't say anything like that. We'll ask him about that when we call him. So let's get to some of the inaccuracies here. Chris Nelson refers to a pocket knife in the article. He says, well, you can't arrest someone for a pocket knife. Well, gee, Chris, we know that. In fact, the weapon used wasn't a pocket knife. That was what she was handing out among ice picks. It was a taser. Yeah. And Antifa said they had shotguns in their car, assault rifles, AK-47s. This was the same station, again, keep in mind, that turned down the story of all of this footage. And
Journalism.
Yeah. So it comes down to this. Who is Chris Nelson? Because he is the only source here saying police reviewed footage. Well, who's police? Apparently Chris Nelson. He's the only person. And does he have an axe to grind? This is important because this gets picked up by national news from one source with no reference or byline. Okay, so obviously he's a University of Utah spokesperson. We know that. Wants to minimize any bad collateral damage. Something you may not know. He's a confirmed far, far left progressive. Let me show you. He interned for the Clinton White House. He's a delegate for Utah Democrat Convention. At the Utah Democrats, their convention. He issued anti-Trump statements on behalf of the university, by the way. So public statement he recently made on behalf against Donald Trump's potential ending of DACA, saying he's deeply troubled by President Trump's decision to end DACA. So you may think, oh, he's just a classical liberal.
No.
The spokesperson for University of Utah, the only source of reference for this article. By the way, since we left that voicemail?
Yeah, underground. Tweets,
private.
gone.
Completely protected. Wasn't that way 2 hours ago.
Wow.
He's tweeted about white privilege microaggressions. And just a few weeks ago, he tweeted directly an article that mentioned Ben Shapiro and how he doesn't believe in white privilege and how it actually exists. You know who they cite? Peggy McIntosh. Does that name ring a bell? She's the author of the white privilege test that we took last week. That absurd white privilege test.
Terrible test.
So this is the University of Utah spokesperson. This is the only source listed. When people send me this email, they say, well, what do you think about people saying there was no credible threat in the footage? This is the only place it comes from. Nowhere else. Keep in mind that somebody was arrested who was caught in our footage. And again, Not Gay Jared has been communicating directly with federal investigations. We've been as compliant as humanly possible. And here's the problem with media and again, the way the system works. The people who have no respect for an ongoing investigation, the people who have no respect for those in the front lines who are actually, their safety is at risk, so they cannot reveal a ton of information. These are the people who just release information with no sources or byline, or they just make it up. Whereas people who are beholden to truth saying, you know what, we really don't want to step on the toes of some feds out there. Yeah. We really don't want to make anyone look bad or hurt anybody's investigation, usually remain silent.
And our Twitter profiles are still set to public.
Our Twitter profiles are still set to public. So this is Chris Nelson. And we wanted to get to the bottom of it, so not really a prank call. But we decided to call him.
Hello, Roman Munson.
Hey, Rowan, Chris Nelson at the University of Utah. How are you?
Oh, Mr. Nelson, I'm doing well. How are you, sir?
Good. What can I do for you?
Well, that was quick. I appreciate you calling me back so quickly. So sometimes
I was on the other line and just missed you. So
sure. Sometimes it's a waiting game. Listen, I was just calling. I hope I didn't catch you at a bad time to clarify some information surrounding this. Have you've no doubt seen this Undercover Antifa video that occurred on your campus?
Right. I did see that. Well, yeah, from I forget what his name is, the guy who produced it. But yeah, I've seen it.
Okay. Now, since you work there on campus, I was just questioning. First off, how do you feel about its authenticity?
I'm not sure we have, as a university, any position on it. I know that the gentleman, and I'm blanking on his name. I don't have my notes right in front of me. He was there. Our police. He chatted with our police officers.
Oh, do you mean the man who made the video? Is that?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah,
Steven
yeah.
Crowder. I have it right in front of me.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So in terms of him being there, he was certainly there. In terms of the authenticity of that content, I don't think we have a position on it. I would tell you, just from the university's perspective, we enforced a no visible weapons policy, a no mask policy. It was, for most intents and purposes, a really non-violent protest. As we said, we have 2 arrests.
Sure.
We have 3 other people detained. There was not a host of knifings on campus that night.
Right.
I would suspect half the crowd
there were
probably
two
had
arrests.
pocket knives.
From what I understand,
arrests.
2 arrests.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you know, were
Yeah.
any of the people included in that footage arrested? Are they included among those arrested?
So I'd have to go back to just let you make your own determination on that. Again, from my perspective, in looking at the woman who was arrested and taken to jail, it looks a lot like the person he was talking to. But again, I don't have any way of validating
Certainly.
names or anything.
Sure. I don't want to put you on the
Yeah.
spot or have you speak out of turn. I know you mentioned that you spoke with the police department in a local article with Fox 13. Could you give me the name of the person there, the contact who said there was no credible threat?
At Fox or at
The police who issued the statement.
Yeah. So I was speaking on behalf of the police. I was speaking on behalf of the university's police department. So our chief is the chief of police, and so again, I think
So made that was the one who said there was no credible threat from the footage, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, I think the incidents of the night hold up to that. I mean, I think there was a very visible police presence. There was a very significant police presence behind the scenes as well. And I think that any incidents of violence that popped up, our police were very good to kind of intervene before. So,
sure.
Yeah, I think if there had been a credible threat, they would have reacted and
possibly arrested somebody. Yeah, sure. Let me ask 2 more questions. I know you're busy. I'm sure, especially after this, you're probably getting inundated with calls. I appreciate you taking the time. Let me ask you. I know, as someone who's obviously been very public about your more progressive views, do you worry at all that with the video evidence, you see this on some right-wing blogs, that your statements might be taken? They're taking them just as damage control. Have you seen any blowback there, and how do you best manage that?
That's an interesting question. The university's position is, we have to balance these values that the university has of free speech, of equity and diversity, of respect. And none of these are more important than the others, so we really do have to balance them. So, on our University of Utah campus, the night of, it's not illegal to have a pocket knife in your pocket. Even state law allows people in Utah, even on our campus, to have concealed weapons if they have a concealed weapon permit. So,
sure.
Any visible weapons that night, and in general, I mean, if you walk across campus with a rifle, you're going to get stopped by police pretty quickly. If you walk across campus with a
certainly. Yeah, I know you have these open carry activists who just walk around with their assault rifles. It's very unnerving and unnecessary. But sorry, I have a dog here in the office with me. I apologize. He hears about the assault rifles and gets riled up.
Yeah. Well, and again, the other thing I would say is, I'm representing the university. I would say we have people who are very passionate. Who were very passionate about us making sure we allowed this. And we had people who were very, very passionate, demanding that we cancel this event. And so, again, I think as from the university's perspective, it's trying to balance these needs. And again, from a free speech perspective, we are unless there's a very credible threat of violence against the speaker, or the speaker themselves is trying to incite a crowd to violence, we are going to mostly we're always going to try to hold to this idea of hosting. And again, as I've said in other media reports, we have every week we've got interesting speakers on this campus. It's, Mr. Shapiro certainly had a lot of attention.
Sure. But, and I know you're not a huge fan of his.
Personally,
No, you're not a huge fan of his. Yeah, I know. Believe me, I know you can't necessarily speak of that, but I've combed through the social media and Twitter as well. I'm tracking with you. I understand this can't be official from the university. Final question here. I know you mentioned obviously anyone can have pocket knives on campus, but the fact that this lady who was later arrested, Jenna Martin, was on video handing out weapons and had a taser, and she did use it for the assault later on, and was arrested. Have you had any communication or reached out to anyone with the Federal Bureau of Investigation or anyone who might be involved with actually investigating Antifa? Has there been any reach out to them?
I would definitely say our police department have been in contact with all sorts of police agencies, including federal law enforcement. I don't think I'd be in a position to confirm anything more than that, but
sure.
Yes, I would say in advance of this and even afterwards, I know the chief and his team have been reaching out to a variety of resources.
Well, the reason I ask is because you spoke on behalf of the police, and everyone we know at the FBI, none of them have spoken with you. And no one from the police said that they gave you an official statement. So I'm wondering, you give a statement for the police, you haven't spoken with anyone over there who would actually be involved with the investigation. Chris, what's the truth here, man?
The investigation into what exactly?
Into Antifa, the arrests, the people who would be actually involved with national security measures. None of them have heard from you. You haven't reached out to any of them. No one from the police department or the FBI. So I'm wondering who made the statement. It seems as though it's you speaking on behalf of the police, which seems at the very least misleading, especially it would seem to be a conflict of interest given you being a delegate to the Utah Democrat State Convention, your track record. Seems as though there might be some conflicts of interest here, and nobody knows you. Nobody spoke with you.
Mm-hmm. Well, we don't investigate Antifa as a university. Again, our goal and our police department's goal that night was to prevent violence on campus. We don't have a position on Antifa. Anyone. Do you have a position on as long as they're not violent?
Do you have a position on speaking for the police when they didn't, in fact, give you those statements, or the FBI? Do you have a position on that?
I don't think I've spoken on behalf of the FBI. I have spoken on behalf of the police, and the police have said that based on evidence they had, they didn't see a credible threat. And again, I think the event itself speaks to that. I think the event was a non-violent event except for a couple of arrests and a couple of interventions. I don't think there's anything else to...
But the arrests stemmed directly from footage and information that couldn't have otherwise been known outside of that footage. Like code names and their weapons and their motive and what they planned on doing. Do you not find it curious that the person who was arrested was a person who was caught on camera handing out weapons with a taser expressing motive, and that coinciding with the fact that no one officially outside of yourself issuing a statement would seem at the very least intellectually irresponsible, if not dishonest, to allow that to go out to the press?
Yeah, he was based on an assault, and that's what I'd stand with. That's what the arrest was based on. The arrest was not based on anything else. So.
Yeah, based on assault. That's not really the issue. That is a big issue. But the same headline could read: Steven Crowder investigates Antifa, arrests ensue.
Again, university's not. I'm not talking about Antifa. I'm talking about.
No, you're just speaking on behalf of law enforcement organizations who didn't make those statements. It's you.
I'm speaking on behalf of the University of Utah Police Department, who had 2 arrests and 3 folks detained that night. I don't think I've ever claimed to speak on behalf of any other.
No, sure. So when did you graduate from the when did you graduate from the police academy?
Have I claimed to be a police officer? I'm confused by where we're going here.
Well, I'm not. Well, let me clarify as simply as possible. No one knows of this statement. You have no source. It's you. You shouldn't be speaking on behalf of any police agency, and certainly not something that would involve a national investigation, as it does with maybe an actually classified domestic terrorist organization like Antifa, who were handing out weapons and were subsequently arrested on your campus. You know there were credible threats of violence. You had SWAT teams there. You had officers on the roof. People were arrested after this footage was turned over. It is not common practice for a University of Utah, any school spokesperson to speak on behalf of the police. That's not how this works.
I am speaking, to be very painfully clear with you, on behalf of the University of Utah and its police department. That is my job here. Not speaking on behalf of anybody else and not on behalf of anyone else. And the university stands by the way the evening was handled, and it stands by the way its police department handled itself. And that's all I've got to say. Thanks, Dan.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, he hung up in a hurry. Hey, did you like this video? Of course you did. Unless there's something wrong with you, in which case you can comment below. What's your problem with this video? We want to hear from you, and we promise you 100%, I give you, my word is my bond, we'll answer every single negative comment. For those who are normal, you can leave a thumbs up and subscribe.